From the wild Pacific coast to the canyons and sea banks of the Atlantic, to the coral reefs of Florida, to the fertile Gulf of Mexico, America's ocean is an incomparable cradle of life. The ocean gives us food and fuel, wealth and health, places to play, places to work. But the demands we place on this life-giving resource are expanding at an unprecedented rate. Today, we need our ocean more than ever. And never has the ocean more needed our help in return. We will journey to 4 regions of the country, where people are forming unique partnerships to protect not only their economic well-being, but also the sea life that sustains them. Located a few miles off the coast of Massachusetts, the Stellwagen Bank National Marine Sanctuary is one of the most productive ocean environments anywhere. A place of unusual richness, a mixing bowl of upwelling currents and nutrients that feed multitudes of fish and seabirds, people and marine mammals. When in 1992 Stellwagen Bank became a national marine sanctuary, it also inherited a long and busy history of ship traffic. The sanctuary's waters are plied by all forms of vessels. And that has posed a growing challenge for the largest and oldest residents of Stellwagen.
I've been studying whales in the area of Stellwagen Bank for about 25 years. So we've always known that there was an issue with whales getting struck and injured and killed by large vessels.
There's more and more cargo ships going in different directions from overseas and up and down the coastline. There's a lot of recreational uses, there's commercial uses. A lot of demand for wind power to be done out on the ocean. We now have 2 offshore liquefied natural gas terminals off the coast of Boston.
When Wiley and Haddon teamed up to save the whales, their first order of business was to collect data on ship traffic, eventually pinpointing all the large ships traveling through the sanctuary.
Coming towards us. Well, no.
Determining the whale's whereabouts required different skills. To track the whales, Wiley and his crew employed a new device called a D-tag, a miniature computer harmlessly fastened to the whales with suction cups.
Like this. Right, okay. Good placement. Wait till she brings her back up. You're right on the right spot. Let her bring it up. Let her bring it back up. Let her bring the back up now. Out. Perfect. Yeah. Perfect.
When the D-tag detaches from the whale, a radio beacon leads scientists to its location to retrieve it. This animation is based on the information gathered from the D-tag. Here we see the feeding behavior of humpback whales as it has never been seen before.
But the D-tag allows us to get down to the bottom and see that, in fact, they are doing this sort of rolling behavior and feeding on what you're seeing here, which is the sand lands right along the bottom, sometimes during the day, mainly at night.
The data from the D-tag revealed not only the whales' feeding behavior, but also their exact whereabouts. Wiley's team then overlaid the shipping lanes and the locations of the whales. And bingo! They discovered that the shipping lanes were going right through the whales' feeding grounds.
And the shipping lanes went right through the prime habitat. So I think you don't need to be a scientist to understand that that's not a good thing and that that increases the likelihood of a whale getting hit by the ships.
This is where we would board them and bring them.
There were also areas in the sanctuary that were less used by whales. So we decided it'd be a good idea, very smart, to try to move the shipping lanes from areas that whales used a lot to areas that the whales used with much less frequencies.
The lane was shifted north to come in a direction like this. This would represent what the new shipping lane looks like as opposed to the old one. And there have not been any incidents, so.
The last thing that we want to do is to harm one of the animals with a ship. And nobody wants to do that. The shippers don't want to do that. The pilots don't want to do that when they're on the ship. So we want to take the steps, and we educate the captains and everybody involved so that risk is reduced. Yeah.
I think it's much better when you have buy-in from the industry on this sorts of decisions, and if everyone from the Port of Boston was screaming and yelling and calling their politicians, it can really derail this sort of process to the detriment of the whales. But there's been close to 100% compliance with the ships following the voluntary lanes, and I think that's testimony to how much the industry really embraced it.
Because people from different arenas were willing to work together, sharing their knowledge and data, Boston became the first port in the nation to change its shipping routes to protect marine mammals, reducing the whale's risk of being struck by more than 80%. Collaboration and better planning can help us solve conflicts that increasingly arise over how we use the ocean. Billy Causey, longtime leader of the Florida Keys National Marine Sanctuary, has firsthand experience.
I used to get calls by the dive operators who would be complaining about the charter fishing boats that would troll close to the reef, and their fish would get hooked on and they would wrap around divers, and I would get calls from families that were upset that people were spearfishing right next to them at one of the reefs, or I'd get calls from dive charter boats who had tropical fish collectors collecting right on the top of the reefs where they were. So there were all these conflicts in these areas.
To solve these conflicts, Causey formed the nation's first Sanctuary Advisory Council, bringing in representatives of all that had a stake in the health of the Keys.
I understand where you're coming from, and
bringing people together to talk about a problem is step one. I can only speak from my experiences here and how it was done here, and it was done right. Everybody's involved, and everybody gets to hear what everybody has to say.
Pioneering our nation's first regional ocean plan, the Council's solution was to partition the Keys' most critical areas. The Council adopted a special set of marine zones to protect the sensitive reefs from overuse and to separate conflicting uses. And ironically, in separating the people, it brought them together.
It works out fine for us. I don't know any charter boat fishermen here that would say that the sanctuary preservation areas have hurt their business. I don't know anybody that would say that.
Collaborative ocean planning for the Keys turned even the most vocal critics into supporters.
It was the right thing because I'm still catching fish here. I'm not fishing there, but I'm still catching fish there. So what did it really take away from it? So is it really hurting me? No, and if it does some good, so much the better. And then when you see that it does some good, they said, hey, maybe we should close some other areas.
Protecting both their businesses and the ocean, in the early 2000s, the Sanctuary Advisory Council established the Tortugas Ecological Reserve. At that time, the largest fully protected marine area in the country.
Our job is to make sure that there are fish and other resources here for the future. Our job is to make sure that these groups have something here in the future to make a living off.
It really worked out, in our best interest that they're protecting these resources, because what they protect helps us in the long run.
On the opposite side of the country, in the Pacific Ocean, from the northern tip of Vancouver Island to Baja, California, runs a great and fertile ocean current. The upwelling waters of the California Current, mixing the cold and deep with the warm and shallow, stir the nutrients that feed great congregations of fish and wildlife, as well as the people who make their living here. Now, communities are taking unprecedented actions to protect their ocean so that they can continue to make a living here. Located at the westernmost point of the continental United States, the small fishing community of Port Orford, Oregon, laid the groundwork for an ocean plan of their own by launching the Port Orford Community Stewardship Area. The stewardship area encompasses some 1,300 square miles of state and federal waters, as well as the upland watersheds that feed into them. Here, the people of Port Orford nurture collaboration for conservation and resource management.
So that's what really kind of started me down this road. I wanted to have some voice in our future here, instead of letting, other people tell us what our future is going to be. We wanted to be part of it.
Just the fact that we had been on the ocean for all of those years and that many people for that long. We actually can propose some really valuable conservation measures based on what we know.
Okay, fish on!
And so what we're trying to do is use the local knowledge and the science together for conservation.
Walking the talk, the Port Orford community took another bold step and established a marine reserve and marine protected area within their fishing grounds. In a fully protected marine reserve like Port Orford's Redfish Rocks Marine Reserve, the abundance, size, and egg production of marine species increases substantially compared with unprotected areas nearby. Marine reserves are safe havens for the big, old, fat, fertile female fish that can replenish fish stocks with their long spawning seasons and numerous high-quality offspring. Marine reserves may also spread young marine plants, invertebrates, and fish into surrounding waters that are open to commercial and sport fishing. Port Orford also established a marine protected area. What's the difference between marine reserves and marine protected areas? Marine protected areas may be less restrictive than marine reserves by allowing activities like salmon trolling, crabbing, sport fishing, and other extractive activities.
We want to nip in the bud before there's a problem. How long can you go? How long can you catch all the big females?
Well, the problem is
right.
It's going to be before, when they realize there's a problem, it's too late.
Right.
That's what always happens on all the fish. We'd like to address a problem and find out before and address it, so we don't have the problem.
That's where research reservists came in. We've gotten more scientific study in the last 4 years than we've gotten all my lifetime down here.
And we're going to get a lot more.
The team has initiated more than a dozen local science projects in their stewardship area, mapping marine habitat, releasing rockfish that are about to spawn, and undertaking the region's first survey for seaweeds.
Even in this late collection, we've still got 60 different species of seaweeds out there, and about 12 of them were new records to Oregon. And some of them may be new species, which we're quite excited about.
Port Orford's ocean conservation measures are reaching beyond their forest and ocean environments. The health of the ocean is on everybody's radar here.
I'm Michael Murphy, the City Administrator of the City of Port Orford. This is our bioswale project here. The idea of that is to take and collect all the storm water that comes off of this parking lot. With about 100,000 vehicle visits per year, you can imagine there's quite a bit of pollutants that come in here. Comes in the storm drain here. After it goes through here, it works its way into this bioswale, and these plants and the soil microbes here detoxify and treat any toxic materials in the water. It helps to clean things up, remove the sedimentation. The purpose of the ordinance is naturally to improve water quality, and we're one of the few communities that actually has a stormwater ordinance of this nature. The idea is to show people how simple it is to make a great improvement. And, you know, it doesn't cost a lot, it's not difficult, it's not expensive, it's fairly easy to do. And so if we can improve it here before it gets to the ocean, we've improved the ocean health. And the oceans have been under assault worldwide, and it's nice to try to take care of that. So make a little difference in our own spot, and maybe others will do the same thing, and ultimately everything improves.
Efforts to improve the health of the ocean are underway in America's heartland as well, with Iowa farmers taking the lead.
Some people say, well, what does Iowa have to do with the Gulf of Mexico or the ocean anyway? And we say, well, about 200 million gallons every minute. The Mississippi River has a drainage from 31 states. What happens in Iowa, what happens in Nebraska, in Idaho, in West Virginia, that happens to the ocean. There's an enormous impact.
Once covered by tall grass prairie, the Midwest today is a highly modified landscape of industrial agriculture. This monoculture of row crops releases great quantities of excess nutrients in the form of nitrogen and phosphorus that now washes from Midwestern soils by way of the Mississippi River to the Gulf of Mexico. Here, these nutrients create immense blooms of algae, whose decaying masses deplete the ocean water of oxygen, every year creating a dead zone the size of Massachusetts. A hypoxic zone that suffocates nearly everything in its path. To witness firsthand what they were hoping to save, a group of Iowa farmers boarded a southbound bus and followed their Mississippi River downstream to its meeting with the Gulf of Mexico.
I've been doing this for 20 years, and I don't think I've had Iowa farmers on a boat. I've had just about everybody else, from rock stars to country music singers to Oklahoma tourists, but no Iowa farmers.
Taking the bait, but not taking the hook. The red line is the bottom.
It won't go back. Wow. And you push it, and it goes. That's why I call it triggerfish.
I'm basically a fish out of water down here, aren't I? Interesting experience.
I guess I didn't realize the value of it as far as the fishing industry and that sort of thing. How important it is.
People throughout this country understand that we need to work together to solve problems that extend well beyond the boundaries of our state.
Right now we're developing what's called nutrient reduction wetlands. And these wetlands are placed below a watershed, a farming watershed, and that water then sits in these wetlands for a short period of time. Those wetlands reduce the amount of nitrogen in that water. As that water leaves, it has 40 to 70% less nitrogen than it did as it came in.
Iowa's commitment for restoring the health of the Gulf now calls for the construction of up to 3,000 wetlands to catch and filter agricultural runoff. The first wetlands already in place turn out to be not only remarkable water filters, but also essential wildlife habitat.
Oh, there they are. That's a pair of trumpeter swans. They came into the area about 3 years ago, the first pair. They've raised several offspring over the last 3 years, and
story was out that they might have been the first pair that nested outside of captivity in Boone County. And they've come back 3 years in a row, so I'm pretty proud of them.
Lifelong Iowan Jim McHugh jumped at the opportunity to establish a wetland on his farm with a sense of stewardship reaching far beyond his property line.
I think I'm doing my part to help clean up the Mississippi, and it's only a little part, but at least it's a part.
The important thing is that the ecosystem retains its resilience, its ability to survive. And that goes also for the people who live along the coasts. We want resilient communities. We want communities that can withstand floods, withstand hurricanes, withstand other threats that may occur, and still survive. And so if our human communities, if our animal communities, can be resilient, that's the most important thing.
We all must do our part to save the ocean, no matter where we live. To learn what you can do, go to ocean-frontiers.org. This is your opportunity to get involved.